best intros I've ever had. I'm used to more boring PowerPoint presentation introductions. So welcome everyone. My name is Violeta Kellersohn, but I go by Vi. And I'll be providing you with a presentation today around the business case for virtual reality training. So certainly working with many organizations at Oberon Technologies. I've been with Oberon Technologies for more than 10 years now. And Oberon, for the better part of 17 years, has been working with customers across many industries, predominantly in manufacturing, medical device manufacturing, heavy equipment, energy industries, helping with the digital transformation. We started out providing services and helping people move off of PDF or hard copy books for learning how to familiarize themselves with how to operate a product, how to service a product, user manuals, owner's guides, and then, of course, moving into training people on how to work with that equipment. And as a logical progression, and as the technology has emerged now for VR, we've also added to our business as recently as 2019, the capacity to be able to create virtual reality experiences now, enabling a greater level of interactivity and engagement with that digital information. Now, first of all, let's talk about when we talk with our customers, what do we mean by VR training? You just saw John talk about what are some of the various aspects and ways in which you can learn. And VR isn't necessarily for every avenue of training, but what we are looking for is being able to create fully immersive environment where not only can you gauge the person's emotional reaction, but you can gauge or their ability to do the skills, but you can gauge their emotional reaction. And you can work in environments where it's highly regulated or it might be safe, so you can do hazardous situations. You can have very critical processes that must be followed. All of this is all part of the experience of having a world in which you are fully immersed, you're fully engaged, and then you're learning whatever you might need to be taught in order to be able to efficiently use, service, or operate a product. For many of our customers, why do they get involved? Why would you even begin looking at VR when you have other ways of training? You have classrooms, you have CBTs, you have computer-based training. There are other ways in order to be able to provide that information. So the reason is there are hard cost savings. You have the opportunity for your company to eliminate flying people out to certain facilities. If you can have that facility fully created in a virtual environment, now you can look at a specific plant, you can look at a large piece of equipment, and you don't have to take people out of production or move them to pay for travel costs. You have the ability to get your users learning more quickly, get them into an environment more quickly so they're more quickly productive. So now you're saving on time that might take months, days, weeks. In order to get a new employee onboarded, you can now give them that experience where they might learn more quickly, and you can train people even before they come into your facility. And then, of course, there's the opportunity to have lowering the costs of training throughout the year. Training isn't a one-time experience. You oftentimes will be training your employees over and over again. So anything you can do to reduce your training costs is going to lead to the bottom line of the company being more profitable. Other reasons that our customers look at training information is what are the types of savings, proficiencies, and productivity improvements? You heard some of the quotes earlier of that retention rate. When you're fully immersive and you're actually doing versus reading or being told or watching a video, you retain that information for significantly longer. And this is some of the research that we often share. When we engage with our customers and talk about the value of VR training, I like to leverage existing research. I like to leverage some of the studies, and certainly you can stop by our website or by our booth and I can share some of the results of some of the research that is available. So you're quoting real results and able to engage with your management team to say, this is why it's important for us to look at VR training, whether it's faster, cheaper, or that our employees are going to be able to be more productive. Those are critical areas. A fourth area is risk and safety. At Oberon Technologies, many of our customers are industrial manufacturers, as I mentioned, energy, including nuclear energy, gas and oil facilities. So you can imagine some of the environments are very hazardous and very dangerous. You're not going to practice working on an oil rig in a hurricane. You're not going to necessarily want to have your people in a radioactive environment within a nuclear facility to learn how to turn off that valve or do that proper procedure. So really, any areas that have high risk can be tremendous areas of savings and an opportunity to have the return on your investment. when you're talking about investing hundreds of thousands of dollars to create these unique experiences, you want to be able to prove that there are ways in which to ensure the safety of your employees. So really looking at kind of the 4 areas. When we work with our customers and we provide a fully immersive, we provide a full opportunity to create a customer-specific ROI. So I'll use some of these general research studies, but we'll look at each aspect of the virtual reality training that we're building for our client and where they might be able to reduce hard costs. For a mining company, it might be making sure that your trucks are operational. So even cutting 1 hour down on the maintenance repair procedure can be hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings. Or you might be able to might want to increase your training efficiencies. For some of our manufacturers, they have a lot of new hires. Now with the turnover in staff, they may need to get hundreds of students through the same training course, and their training rooms may only have capacity for a dozen students versus hundreds that they need to get through. So VR training can extend that environment and be able to give you a fully immersive, the same course materials now available to more students, and they'll be able to get through the training more quickly. And then, of course, the elimination of risk. As I mentioned earlier, during the training process, anytime you can eliminate injuries, not only to an individual, you can eliminate damage to your equipment, damage to your facility. Those are intangible savings. And we'll talk about some of the ways in which we measure that. And then at the end of the day, what really helps build that business case and helps us helps our customers convince their management team to make an investment is showing the real opportunities, the real possibilities, and getting them into the headsets and seeing how that really works. So first, let's look at some of the hard cost savings. What we do is we have a look at all the quantifiable ways. How many students, how many courses, what does your facility look like, what's currently involved in some of your training procedures. For many of our customers, the first time they've even thought of some of the aspects of the physical in-person training or computer-based training and what some of those costs are related to that is when we do the interview process to begin the ROI calculation. Then we work through and we talk about what are the possibilities, how can we apply some of the research-proven aspects of VR training. Oh, sorry, my screen just turned to a clock. I thought you didn't see it. How can we apply that? And what are the various areas? So not every company is going to have the exact same areas of savings. So for one company, it might be that they have very few trainers and they need to be able to increase the capacity of their trainers. For another company, they may not want to be flying students around globally. For a third company, it may be that they don't want to take people out of production and working on the production line in order to have them train new hires. So you're able to capture the scenario from that experienced production line worker, but create the virtual course for them. So we look at all those areas, and then we help calculate. And then we look at what are the measurable results? How are we going to be able to prove in that proof of concept or in that pilot VR training, how are we going to be able to prove the value? So we identify what the potential savings are, and then we prove it out in the very first experiences. Some of the areas that we look at and some of the additional aspects and benefits of VR training is the ability to have repeatable and reusable components. So you're able to create in a virtual environment. Let's say we create, and we have created an entire nuclear power plant facility within a digital twin within 1/8 inch accuracy. Well, you can use that to train people on how to identify hazards that might be in the workplace. You can use that on how to help people identify ways in which they can get more quickly to the specific valve or the unit they need to repair. They can have location awareness. How do I get from this area of the plant to that area of the plant? How can I improve those efficiencies? So you have the ability to have reusable components and repeatable courses, making it very easy for you to find and improve efficiencies within your organization. The fully immersive environments, as we mentioned earlier in some of the presentations, gives you the ability to have people completely engaged. They're not distracted. They're not trying to think of other aspects. They're really paying attention to what they're learning, and that's going to increase the efficiency of the course and oftentimes why the training happens more quickly. Students aren't distracted. They're paying attention, and they're really more engaged and want to participate in more training. And then we're able to do analytics. So as part of the virtual training environments, you're able to capture what are the students doing? Where are they looking? Where are they going? What tools are they trying to access? So you're able to have analytics on, are they following the proper procedure? And if they're not following the proper procedure, are the students making the same repeated mistakes or looking in the specific area where you never thought that most of them would be looking at? So those are things you want to be able to capture. And what is their proficiency? Being able to report on that so that your trainer doesn't have to be involved with every single individual. They can look at the analytics after they've completed the training and know what has happened. And then the ability to have efficiency in being able to deliver these experiences. So sure, you can create great, wonderful, large files of virtual reality experiences, but how do you get it into the hands of your training facilities, your users, and in some cases, your clients? So at Oberon Technologies, we not only provide the VR experiences and the content that I talked about, we provide a delivery platform. A delivery platform that each organization can customize and have an environment specific to their company brand, their look, their feel, but it can deliver their VR experiences. So through a web portal or through a URL, they're able to access the experiences, the courses specific to the end user. When the user logs in, using your authentication, it can provide them with just the courses that have readily available to them. So you have a platform that can deliver the VR experiences specific to the individual, but also any additional course materials they might need, whether it be legacy information in PDF, Word, XML, HTML, the platform can handle all of that. So you're improving the efficiency of those who are being trained, how they're accessing the information, and what you're capturing from the experiences that they're engaged in. Another area that we talk to our customers that justifies oftentimes the investment in adding another way to do training. So let's be honest, virtual reality training isn't the only way that you're going to train your individuals, but it does give the ability to capture some of that IP. So let's talk first about kind of providing years of training in hours of experience. When you have a field technician in an oil and gas environment, they may only see a burst pipe once every year, or they may only see an explosion and have to deal with a fire once every 5 years. Now, in the VR experience, we can take that scenario that the technicians or that the organization has experienced and say, let's create these so that when a new employee or when existing employees who have never had that experience before, how can we give them the opportunity to see what it would be like in order to get engaged in an environment or a scenario that might be very frequent or infrequently found in the field, but is very critical to the success of your organization. So in just a few hours, you can capture that more experienced technician's lifetime of experiences, create scenarios from that, so even when that employee is gone, they can be training new employees on some of those same scenarios. And then the employees have the freedom in order to fail. So if you have to follow a specific procedure and you know in the field, if you don't do the steps for this specific lockout, tagout, that you will create an explosion or you will get electrocuted, you're probably going to be much more careful in doing that specific procedure or trying to train your employees. You're going to be very careful with the equipment. You're going to be very careful with the safety of the employee. In the VR environment, the employees can try looking at different ways. You can see what they might instinctively do in the field that might be hazardous and be able to avoid that when they are deployed in the real world scenarios. So giving people the opportunity to walk through an environment just as they would in real life and see where they might do the proper procedure and where they might fail. And then we talked about the increased retention, improving the readiness. When someone has had a chance to walk through these immersive environments and they finally get into the field, research has proven that they are significantly more productive, significantly more confident, and there's fewer risks associated with them performing the role in the real world. And then you're able to identify problems early. I alluded to this earlier. You may be able to put an employee in an environment where they may have to go into a confined space. So they may know how to repair that component. But if that component is down the hall or is in an area where they might have to go underground, they may not be comfortable going down to reach that component and getting it done. So you're able to identify problems, or if an employee can't work at heights, or if they can't get from one area of the plant to the other area of the plant because they have to walk across a beam or walk across an area that might be at elevation. Those are the kind of things you're able to screen for or identify problems. So even though an employee might want to be upskilled and do a new role, they have to be able to actually perform that task. And now you'll be able to know in the virtual environments, because as we know, the virtual environment is fully immersive. It not only gives you the ability to know if you can do the task, it gives you the emotional reaction to the heights, to the confined spaces, to the noise that's happening, to the explosion, to the smoke in the room. Can you operate in those dangerous environments? So you're able to screen your staff more efficiently, and before you're investing in this new employee and 3 months later you find out they can't actually climb the ladder, you'll know earlier. So these are some of the ways in which we help build out the business case for our customers. We help explore all of these areas and see what are the trigger points. Where is it going to be of greatest value for you to include VR? In some areas, it might be appropriate to continue to have your computer-based training or continue to have your instructor-led courses. In other areas where it's very dangerous in a hazardous environment, you don't really want to be putting your employees in that, and you don't want to take chances with your expensive equipment or the lives of your existing production staff. So you want to create those in virtual environments. Courses that take up valuable equipment. I mentioned earlier the example of a mining equipment. When you have a truck that every hour that it carries a load is $80,000 of payload, you don't want to have to take that truck offline for new employees to learn how to drive that truck or how to inspect that truck. You want to be able to keep your equipment in the field, and you want to have the virtual version of your equipment for your users to train on. So now you're not taking your resources, you're not taking your staff, you're not taking your expensive equipment out of the field. And then I mentioned earlier that gauging the scenarios, gauging the emotional reaction. That's another area where if it's critical that your employees can work in a harsh environment, in a dangerous environment, at elevation, you want to be able to vet people in those environments. And then any activities where there is unique areas or rare situations you want to prepare your employees for, we find that that is an area where our customers find greater value. So when it's hazardous, when it's safety, when it's very costly to train, that's when VR can be a perfect solution for them. And those are areas that we find a lot of engagement with many of our customers. So I get involved pretty frequently in creating these ROI business cases with our customers. I'll be glad to share more examples with many of you. You can visit our website, and there's some calculations that are shared there. But really, at the end of the day, seeing is believing. Walking through these scenarios, getting the goggles on, seeing an experience that would be comparable to what you would see in your environment is really a great way in order to get management on board and to prove the value of VR training. So I encourage you, I wouldn't wait. The technology is there, the capabilities are there. Looking at the right areas and engaging with the right partners to help you build these business cases, build these experiences that are going to be critical for your organization is going to be key. So if we can be of help at Oberon Technologies, whether it's building the experiences, helping you build your business case, I welcome you to engage with any of us. So there's some quick links here. We also are in booth 300 if you want to stop by our booth during the conference. I'll be glad to share more information with you. And I think I'm going to be running out of time, but if there are questions, as I said, you can stop by and ask me later, or we can take questions in the room if there's time. I have a minute and a half for questions. Are there any questions in the room? Well, okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Right. The gentleman was asking, how do you bring in other people if you're doing a role play? So in many of our environments, for example, we have one example where we have the utility worker in oil and gas, and they have to engage with the fire department. They have to engage with the residents. And so we have actually scenarios that are built in. What is a typical scenario? If a resident is smoking and there is a burning flame, you have to make sure you evacuate the residents. What is the communication with? So we create those scenarios based on some of the experiences that our customers have had in the field, and then we create those as avatars that have different reactions. And each time you come into the experience, there may be a different reaction. There might be somebody with a lawnmower, and the lawnmower is the ignition source versus the cigarette. There might be media there. There may or may not be a fire truck. So all those different scenarios would be experiences, as I mentioned earlier, where in hours you can experience what someone may experience in years in the field. You're going to get all those, all those different scenarios where people don't want to leave or where you haven't engaged the right people. So we build those out as various scenarios. And we do have both environments where there can be multiplayers as well. So the instructor can be in the environment, or you can have other students in the environment that each may have a different role, and they would be enacting that as well. So you have two ways of addressing that. So with that, my time is up, and I'll pass it off to the next speaker. Thank you all very much.